There's an aspect of games that's often overlooked, and that's the UI. For Bloom especially, the UI has come a long way over the years, evolving as the other art advanced and I worked through it all. So where better to start than the beginning? Way back when I was first coming up with the concept for making a game, I really wanted to do something based on the original NES Zelda's UI, which were essentially just black bars, but pushed a bit further. After some playing around in Photoshop, I had come up with a curved frame, kind of mimicking the CTR screens. At least that was the idea. This went through a lot of versions as I kept trying to make it work, somehow, adding more texture to it and trying to really design in the different aspects of the general gameplay UI. Around this time, I was also messing with the main logo for the game, working through different workflows and figuring out how to get the ornate designs to hold more detail. At some point after that, I took an early attempt at an inventory screen, and through some experimentation, I hit on something that really fit with the style of the game. It had a few tabs I'd use for different sections of the inventory, and just a nice open area for putting and stuff. But now I had a problem. The inventory didn't fit with the main screen UI at all. Still, I had set the style for what I wanted to shoot for, which was a pretty big achievement. So I ended up just putting the main screen UI and inventory to the side and shifted focus to other UI elements, such as the targeting circle, which would also represent the accuracy of your ranged attacks, growing larger as it moved away from you or shrinking as you tried to attack something closer. And, of course, the mouse icon, can't forget that, which actually turned into a bit of a challenge since the tiny icon can't hold much detail, and I wanted something unique that would still read from a distance and fit the game style. Finally, it was time to move on to the dialogue screens. Now, dialogue screens were a big potato for the longest time. On one hand, I wanted dialogue screens that were artistic and would really help personalize the characters beyond what the top-down view could do. On the other hand, trying to make full character portraits for each of the speaking characters was a mountain of work, especially since I didn't have much experience with that and didn't feel too comfortable in my abilities to make it happen. Then there was always the compromise that older RPGs often took, which were small boxes with just the faces of the characters. But while I was mulling it over, I had also been playing some Guild Wars 2 in my spare time and loved the character screens they had. So I took a bit of time to try and explore that direction and did a few mock-ups that were pretty close to what they had done. After a while, I had made a bunch of dialogue screen backdrops, and I was playing around with rendering out some of my models, painting over them a little bit to see how things went. The problem is, I didn't like the way things were turning out, not satisfied with the quality of the model renders or the backgrounds. So I shifted my focus and began trying to do some of the character portraits to a better execution, practicing, again, new workflows and trying to improve as an artist. Eventually, I started to make stuff I kinda liked, but I had begun down the path of the full character portraits, which, like I had foreseen before and was trying to avoid, was going to be a huge amount of work to fully finish. Still, I knew what I had to do. So over the years, now and then, I just keep doing more portraits or revisiting older ones to update, while bouncing around to do other work on the game. It seems to have worked out okay, and along the way I actually started enjoying the process a lot more. Still, that was just one aspect of the dialogue screens out of the way. I still needed dialogue boxes. The solid black rectangles that other games often use just weren't doing it for me. In fact, I needed more boxes for a lot of things, such as flavor text or pop-ups, or what screen to use for the options menu. And then there was still the problem of the inventory, let alone the main screen UI during gameplay. So it was time to bounce to another area again while I mulled it over, this time to take another stab at the inventory problem. You see, the first version of the inventory screen turned out far too small for what I needed, and was far too bright. Both not major problems. I could extend the frame and just darken out the background while pushing back the detail a bit. But the big question was, what would go in the inventory? I didn't just want to put text or tiny pixel icons. Sure, those would have been easy and fast, but I wouldn't have been proud of it. I wanted nice, meaty icons, Stuff that really added to the game and connected players to the world more, like my favorite games had always done. Of course, I never tried to make icons before, so I just picked a spot and started making some, guesstimating about how big they should be. Seed types, talking icons, basically the low-hanging fruit of the game that I was sure I would use. Icons have been a constant thing though, always making new ones as I need them, and there are a surprising number of them now, but I guess that's how it goes. The inventory also needed a spot to describe all these items, some flavor text, and later on I added the selection square and all the other bits of the inventory. Overall, the inventory has gone through a few updates, but in the end I had something I thought worked pretty well. And at some point along the way, I did another screen in a similar fashion for the options menu. It actually got done pretty easily since I'd sorted out my workflow by that point. Then it was time to finally get the dialog boxes and flavor text box finished. Now, around this time, Supergiant Games had just released Pyre, so I was seeing it pop up a lot in videos I'd watch while working. Their UI elements really struck me. I loved the rougher feeling of the text boxes, avoiding the hard rectangles and keeping things a bit more sketchy. And the little button? Who doesn't love little buttons? So I did my own version of some of those ideas, while trying to keep it tied to the established ornate bloom styles. On top of that, I added a name tag box, which overall I think turned out fairly well and filled out the missing boxes I needed. Shortly after that, I made the switch to working on Labyrinth, where I went ahead and made an entire new set of UI elements, but I was much faster and more comfortable making them this time. New icons, new inventory screen, new everything. But one thing I was still missing with Labyrinth was the gameplay UI overlay. At some point, I'd made some circles for controller inputs. I think back during Prelude, since having the game playable on consoles and PCs was so important for modern games. Still, there was the need for a UI element to house the health and energy and a charge-up mechanic. Thankfully, like I said, I was much more comfortable making UI elements by then, so I just sketched something out and finished off the details in maybe a couple hours. Just some transparent window which overlaid the simple UI bars we had before. I actually decided to keep the same health UI and memories, since the games share the same world and it helped tie things together more. There are also a few side UI experiments, like the flavor events I'd done for Prelude or the intro sequence. They are mostly just backgrounds and a button or two with limited application. And that's the journey of the UI development over the years. I'd never done anything like it before, but that's really how game development is. Lots of random stuff that you probably haven't done that you figure out as you do it. The UI has sure come a long way since those first attempts, but that mirrors the game in general maturing as my skills have grown. Hopefully it all adds up to something people find interesting when it comes out.